The Twin Daggers have followed the fighter all the way into New Genesis, and they brought with them an extremely fast and mobile playstyle that excels in close single-target combat. Though their reach may be short, just about every action they can perform has some gap-closing properties, and this allows their users to easily keep up with their targets. So, if you're looking for something that feels like an assassin and has vertical mobility, the Twin Daggers have you covered. Starting off with some of the basics, we first have the normal attack, which by default is split up into 3 hits, each involving multiple slashes. Once taking the skill Dagger Extra Attack in the skill tree, a 4th hit will then be added onto this attack chain, which spins you forward or towards your target. This extra spinning attack has iframes throughout, deals about the same damage as your Photon Arts, restores a bit of PP, and is great for repositioning. We then have the Photon Blast, which has you quickly unload on a close target and begin an upward spin. Since it raises you up during the animation, it's sometimes best to use slightly lower than the part you're aiming for. Next up, the Twin Daggers weapon action has you do a quick spin that blocks 360 degrees around you. Unlike some other weapons, you can use this to cancel out of just about any attack at any time. This means you can always be on the offensive and then go right into a block whenever necessary. To take this one step further, with the skill Dagger Counter Spin, when successfully blocking with this, you can follow up with a counter by using a normal attack, which does decent damage and has gap closing properties too. There's then of course the dodge counter as well, and this is pretty similar to the weapon action counter, but it actually does a bit more damage. Getting to the Dagger's main perk, once taking the skill Acceleration Drive, a horizontal white line will appear over the center of your character at or near the end of every Photon Art, and if you normal attack when it's visible, you will perform an attack that brings you closer to your target. Unfortunately, this does not travel too far horizontally, but it does travel a bit further vertically, and you can increase its range and damage when using it in the air too. For those of you used to Quick Cut or Quick Take in PSO2, this is very similar, but this version is much more tame and is seemingly meant to only help you keep up with your target so long as you are somewhat close. Now, as we move on to the Photon Arts, it should first be mentioned that they each have 2 parts or stages. The first of which is usually a wind-up or gap closer, and the second being the main chunk of damage, and sometimes a disengage. Things can then get pretty interesting if you take the skill Fighter Skip Arts, as once you take it, you can choose to do an entire PA from the beginning by using it with a directional input, or choose to skip to the second half by using it without a directional input. This ultimately gives the user a lot more options and makes the fighter weapons a lot more fun in my opinion. Though, in case you were wondering, no, it's not completely necessary to take the skill, but without it you may not be able to do some of the things I show going forwards. So, getting to the actual PAs, we first have Helsius Code, which starts off with a medium range gap closer, and ends with you sending out a ranged slash while retreating backwards. The first half is generally used to get to your target, and can be cancelled directly after with a normal attack or Photon Art to stay in range. The second half, or Skip Arts version, has brief guard frames at the start, and is mostly meant for safely disengaging. Next up is Pirouette Ripper, and this starts with a gap closing stab, and then concludes with the user creating a bunch of photon slashes in front of him that deal damage in a small AoE. You will be completely invulnerable during the first half's movement up until the stab occurs. And if that wasn't enough, the second half has guard frames at the very start, and has super armor throughout. The third and final PA is Circling Buzzard, and this has you spin forward a few times while slashing, and then transitions into a flurry of attacks. The direction you spin at the beginning can be controlled with directional inputs. However, you will be rooted in place during the second half. To somewhat compensate for this, there are guard frames during the very last hit of the second half, and I can only guess that this is to protect you against interruption if you already made it that far into the animation. Other than that, you are completely vulnerable during this lengthy PA, so be sure to make use of your dodge and weapon action to cancel out if need be. Now, when it comes to combos and rotations, the most basic ones you can do are linked to the Same Art Skip and Another Art Skip skills in the fighter skill tree. Same Art Skip allows you to go right into the third normal attack after using the same PA twice in a row. and another art skip attack lets you go into the 4th spinning normal attack after using 2 different Photon Arts in a row, then normal attacking. Taking this a step further, since we can cancel out of Twin Dagger Photon Arts after the first half is complete, and since we can skip right into the second half of PAs with Fighter Skip Arts, we can mix and match different parts of PAs back to back and still proc these same and another art skip combos. To clarify, this means so long as you do part of 2 PAs in a row, you can go right into the 3rd and 4th normal attack. Because of this, you have a lot of freedom to change your combos on the fly depending on what the situation calls for. That all being said, looking at the testing done so far, one of the best stationary DPS rotations with the Twin Daggers is Skip Arts Circling Buzzard into Skip Arts POA Ripper, then Normal Attack 4, in which the order of the PAs doesn't really matter. Alternatively, it seems just spamming one of those 2 PAs, then occasionally weaving in normal attacks is also decent DPS too. Then, when it comes to AoE combos, the daggers don't really have much. But if you can group stuff up well enough, you can do something like Ripper into the first half of Circling Buzzard, and then repeat. Or you could even just spam Ripper. I would, however, suggest you find another weapon to swap to for mobbing. So, let me know what weapons and classes you've mixed with the Twin Daggers, and if you think there's anything I missed. And until next time, drive safe.
I know what I'm up against, and I'm gonna go 100% maximum! Oh my god!
Drive safe.